Welcome to this week's Training Tuesday topic. So today is really part one of two parts to making data seen, because there are two distinct steps to making your data that's outside of Corbett seen in Corbett. So today is that first step of data integration and adapters. Next Training Tuesday, which we're going to have October 21st, we will talk about building layout designs in the Corbett Builder tool that show data that's been brought into the system through these adapters. So today is about getting the data into Corbett. We can see how it's stored in Corbett, and then we'll talk about making it seen in the next class. So welcome to today's Training Tuesday. So data integrations. In your Corbett tenant, you'll find those in either the advanced section, and you will find data integrations, or if you're using our new navigation bar UI, it will be its own section here on the left, but just below the media manager. It's been broken out in this way because we found that data integrations is shared by every single Corbett product, not just signage. So again, the thinking of the new UI is that these options here in this top section switch based on the product family that you're looking at, and the ones that are shared stay constantly visible. That being said, if you are in the new UI and not seeing things like your media manager and your data integration, it may be your browser's zoom level is cutting them off and that you need to scroll the navigation bar down a bit. So just be aware of that in finding your data integrations. It's there in the new UI. If you are still on our mega menu user interface, you'd open up the mega menu, and all the way to the right, you have advanced, and there you will find data integrations. So when you go to the data integration screen, like many screens in Corbett, there are two views. This is the list view of the data adapters. There is also a card view of data adapters. So this is the data integration screen, and what you see listed here are the actual data adapters. A lot of the times we'll use those terms interchangeably. These adapters are the thing that actually connects Corbett to that external data source. So somewhere out there, there is information. It's either in a CSV file that you're going to provide into Corbett, it's in a custom database, it's in a Genesis Pure Cloud database, it's an RSS feed. There's lots of different instances where something is outside of Corbett and you want to bring it into Corbett as a data table. When you create an adapter, you'll be asked to pick which type of adapter you're creating. So the first option, custom or script adapters. This is an example of what the beginning of a custom scripted adapter looks like. I do not have any in my tenant. Custom script adapters are written out fully, providing every single bit of SQL instruction that tells Corbett how to connect to your source. They are custom written by our professional service team in working with you. And it represents a connection to something that's not typical, but does have APIs that we can call on to connect to. The other option here, templated adapter, is also very common. With templated adapters, just give it a generic name, when you create a templated adapter, the system is going to ask you what you're connecting to. And you'll actually have a drop-down list here of the potential adapters that we've just created enough, and they're stable enough in how they are written, that all we have to do is fill in some details about what we're connecting to and how. So each adapter will have a different template, but here in the templated adapter, some things are the same. There is a configuring the selections on the left and then the actual unique adapter on the right that changes. So on the left, you can do make selections like allowing the data to be edited in the preview of the data here in Corbett. So you can either let it be edited by hand once it's in Corbett or not. You can set operational hours for when the adapter should run if you don't want it running all the time. Some adapters require custom scripting to start them or to end the scripts. Most, though, simply just have to be filled in with the details from your service. So whether it's, a 5.9 adapter and you need things like your usernames and passwords and shift start, statistic range, things that 5.9 would have known, or a JSON adapter, which provides a JSON wizard to pull in a table that's in a JSON format. So these different adapters they take some different steps to create. I'm going to show you a couple of them in action today when we actually build a couple adapters. Before that, there's another type of adapter I want to review, and that is fixed data adapter. A fixed data adapter lets you actually create the adapter table in Corbett by hand. This can be helpful if there are variables that you want to provide to Corbett within the CMS. You don't actually have an external data source. You have something that you are feeding into Corbett, and then multiple different designs, layouts, playlists, anywhere where data can be used, you can feed that value in directly. One of the common ways we see clients using this is if they have a ticker that they want to be able to set the messaging of what the ticker says across multiple different designs in Corbett without having to go into each individual design and edit each ticker message by hand. You are able to define a table. You could name it, training Tuesday ticker. You add the values that you want in your table in terms of the headers. When we get into data tables in the adapters, you'll see it all breaks down into a table. What you define are the actual column headers. What type of information is going to be in each column? So you can even have multiple rows of this data into these headings. So you could even have multiple groups have their messages controlled here. So I'm going to define my table as having a column that is titled group, and it's just a string of characters, and message, which is a string of characters. And I'm going to have my group ID be the primary key for my data table. Just defining like which value is the thing that defines this row as a unique value. Save and create. And now I have a fixed data table in the system that I can manage by hand. I can add new rows. So sales group, getting a message that is sales focused. Support. And then in my layout designs, I can build the filtering that will show sales messages to sales groups, support messages to support groups. And obviously, these columns are custom defined, so they can be your groups, your organizations, different messages. And then I tie the ticker to the data table. And yeah, Dan, you using this to custom order your tables. Yes, the other reason fixed data tables get used commonly will be to kind of correlate values. A lot of times from data sources, from databases, values will be captured in a very analytical name, maybe with codes instead of actual written out human understandable names. So you can create a fixed table that says, hey, from this, where you see this value coming from a database, replace it with this more human value when it gets displayed. So you can use it to custom order, you can use it to custom replace names. The fixed data table, the thing that makes it unique is that it lives here in the system. It's not actually getting fed into Corbett from anywhere else. So now I have a new fixed data adapter in my system, my Training Tuesday ticker messages. So I do want to take us through creating a couple different custom templated adapters, or well, I should just say templated adapters, just unique ones for different situations that can come up. So I actually want to create something that's going to feed some news items into the system, and I can add these news items to a ticker. I'm going to grab some ESPN, NHL headlines. Now, I'm able to grab this because ESPN, let me get my web browser over. System processing, please stand by. ESPN has a bunch of different RSS news feeds that I can just grab. They're publicly available. So here's the NHL headlines. I just searched, how I found this? Searched ESPN RSS in Google, and it found me their page of RSS adapters. So I can grab those headlines. I'm going to create an RSS adapter, the URL that's feeding it, give it a name, NHL headlines. Again, I could let me edit this table in Corbett. If I clicked yes, I'm going to be able to edit the table it feeds me, just like I edit a fixed data table. You should be aware, though, that any changes you make by hand will be erased when the actual table refreshes on its cycle. So just be aware of that. Even if you make it editable by hand, it will get wiped out when it runs again and gets the data from the source. So I hit save and create. I have my adapter. I want to turn it on. So my adapter is starting. And now I can preview or view my data that's being fed by that RSS feed. All my columns were created by that RSS feed. I didn't have to define them. Some templated adapter types, you do have to define those columns yourself. So there's the ID for the news article, the title, the description, a link to the actual ESPN website. Again, how I get this on a screen, we're going to view in a couple weeks on our next class. It involves creating a subscription and a layout and then formatting the data to the way that I would like to view it. Your view options and how you format it on the screen is going to depend on what the RSS feed is sending you. So for example, on this RSS feed, I'd be able to show the text of the title, show the description. I'd even be able to take this link, this URL, and I could format it as a QR code that somebody, that sees the screen could scan with a device to go to that full article on ESPN. You do want to be aware, this is just a bit of caution. Wouldn't be doing a good service if I didn't provide a little bit of caution. RSS feeds, you will want to look at the terms of using them. Some of your major news providers have terms that you'll want to be aware of. For example, this one, you do have to basically express that ESPN is the provider of this information somehow. I also can't like manipulate it into advertising. It's not the most onerous terms, but I should be aware of those terms. So that's an example of creating an RSS adapter. Another common templated integration is one that takes a data document that you already have. Maybe it's at the moment in Excel, and you have, maybe it's a list of service anniversaries for employees or birthdays for employees or both. It's a big data table. So you've got things like an employee ID, a name, and service anniversary, birthday, and you want to be able to display these on the screen automatically without having to write out a new document every month. You can just have the system do that for you. So I do have to share, we can't take just an Excel document. You would have to save it as a CSV data file. We can use CSVs in our data adapters. You would upload that CSV to Corbett. So you would bring that into the system. I have a few examples here that I've already imported into the system. An employee birth date, just some example data to be able to show as I teach classes like these. Now, to turn this file into an actual table of usable data, I would again create an adapter, give it a name, service dates for employees. Oh, that's a great time to segue into something I wanted to make sure to add. Data integrations, data adapters are a subscription feature. You do have to subscribe to data adapters to have these work. So if you don't have templated adapters available in your system, you'd want to contact your Corbett team so they can get you the right package of data adapters. And you can see there is a quantity limit here. So I will go ahead and just turn off that adapter. It might take a minute for it to actually shut down before I can delete it. Yeah. Go in. Yeah, it's going to take a minute for that adapter to actually turn all the way off. There we go. So now I can create an adapter. This is going to be a CSV data adapter. This template works by picking the file in the media library that I want to link to. I then have to define the table myself. So I actually need to tell the system the table name. In this one, it's birth dates. And then I have to add my values for those column headers. It's not being fed in any way like the RSS adapter was. There's no code in my document that tells it which ones are headers. I'm getting to my example document so I can open it up side by side. Sorry, system processing, please stand by. As I open my file. So with my file open on my computer, I would need to match the table I am building with the headers for the file by creating my data table here. They don't necessarily have to match name for name. So, employee ID, I could rename it in the system as ID number. The more important piece is going to be anything that's not just a string of integers, anything that's actually a time piece of information or a time stamp or a Boolean value. You want to be very careful with your data. I will let you know strings will always just come in as strings. You won't get any data type errors. But if you're trying to do something with it later, and it should have been brought in as a Boolean value, and you want to treat it as a Boolean value somewhere else in the process, bringing it as a string can stop that from functioning. So I would define my table, hit save, and then I would be able to have my file created as a data table. To update the table of information with a CSV adapter actually happens through the media manager. It is a little bit of a particular process. If I was replacing this file with new employee, like a new list of the current employees and their birth dates, I would have on my computer my employee underscore birth underscore dates file, same file name. I would make my edits on my computer. I would go to where the file is stored in Corbett. I'm importing a new copy, and I want to make sure before I grab any documents, I click Overwrite Media if file already exists. That would replace the existing file with the new copy. When the adapter runs the next time, it will go to the file that has now been replaced, and it will update the data table based on the new file's information. If I had a different file name, if it was like employee birth dates 2025 was the new file name, it won't overwrite the old file, and I would actually have to go to the data adapter. Here's a CSV example that's currently running. I would have to deactivate the adapter so that I could edit the adapter to point it to the new file with the new file name in Corbett. I could then save and create. And then activate my adapter to run again, and it will scan the file, recreating the new data table. Now, one of the error messages or warning messages that popped up said, the existing data table will be lost when you do this. You should be aware that if you have to turn off and turn back on a data adapter, you are going to be removing all of the existing data you had before, and it will be replaced when the adapter runs. Again, this has been data integrations, creating these adapters that connect to different data sources. The type of information it's pulling in is going to depend on the type of adapter you need and the source we're connecting to. That was really my agenda for today. What questions can I answer for you about data adapters? Not seeing anyone come off mute or anyone type into the chat for any questions. So what we will get into in our next section, if no questions, if nothing to explore with you today, what we'll dive into in the next session is how adapter tables can be brought into designs how they can actually feed things like tickers. This is a example of BBC News. Instead of being a, you know, Excel style layout, it's actually driving this ticker across the bottom of the screen. Or this New York Times regional news RSS feed. So with this news feed actually even provides an image link that I'm able to format as an image and then configure my subscription to page through items that are being fed by that New York Times. It's not the most thrilling of designs, I'm sorry to say. And if there's no image associated, you don't necessarily get an image. So I could then put that layout onto a playlist and display that interspersed with my content showing, current news. Or it's showing your data in a desktop message. This also applies to our desktop product. So perhaps it's actually showing real-time call statistics. Okay. So I'll ask again if there's any questions that I can answer for you today about data adapters, data integration, that first step of getting data into Corbett. Okay. I'll thank you for your time today, your focus. I look forward to our next session where we'll talk about making this content, making this visible through the layout builder.